Happy New Year to everybody all over the world. It's a new year, it's a new beginning to whatever we're going to make of it, because of course what it is what we make of our year. My name is Mark. I have Brian and Thumb with me on camera today. What's Thumb wearing today?
Cool cat.
Oh yeah, no, it's a seriously cool cat. And Alex in final control. Scott and Djuma are out already, and I hope we're going to bring you a really fantastic afternoon this afternoon. This is Djuma Game Reserve. This is our live drive for the first day of the year, so what we do today kind of sets the tone for the rest of the drives for that long. A beautiful view over a really lush green bushveld because it is summer. We've had some really good rains and it's getting as thick as it ever can be for this time of the year, which is a really wonderful time. A lot of flowers, a lot of greenery. It is getting denser, which means that it is getting harder to find animals, but I think we've still been very lucky. Scott had a wonderful morning this morning. He managed to find Karula, and actually he's gone back to find Karula now. And I thought if there are not too many vehicles, I thought we might actually try something new with that sort of scenario. So we'll see how that plays out, and I'll fill you in as we go along. There is one thing that I have to mention though, and something that I learned today, and I haven't had it confirmed, but I guess I need to speak to some people to find out if it is true. But from what I understand, Karula had 2 cubs, and she was on Simbambili, which is just to the west of us, another lodge, another property to the west of us that we don't traverse, which is just a little bit, I guess, a little bit north of Arathusa Safari. And I believe she was there a couple of days ago with both cubs, and they were watching her. She had had an impala kill. She was on that impala kill, and hyena came in and took one of the cubs on that day, which would have been I guess 3 days ago, well, depending on how one counts, but 2 or 3 days ago. And maybe that incident prompted her to bring her remaining cub here. And I think I can only speculate, really. I can only really speculate. But I'm thinking that maybe those hyena that were there have followed her and had followed her and had been around all the time when they did what they did yesterday. So it would seem that she had 2 cubs, and it would seem that she lost them both within a day or 2 of each other, and one on Simbambili and one over here. I can't verify that unless somebody out there maybe has contact with Simbambili. So I'm not really sure how true that is. I'm just surprised that nobody learnt of anything of this until I managed to speak to some sort of local trackers. It's kind of a difficult thing to call. If it is true, it doesn't change the fact that she has unfortunately lost both of her cubs. If she had 2 of them, or if she just had the one, she lost the one. However, she was in the area again this morning. I believe she was with one of her boys. I don't know whether it was Kunuma or whether it was the quarantine male, but one of the boys was with her this morning. She's evidently had an impala kill in a tree just below that wonderful big jackalberry on Gari Cutline. And Scott is heading there, and he's going to keep me updated, I guess, through Alex in final control. And if we get a chance, I'd like to get there, and I'd like to be able to maybe switch between camera angles. I'd like to do something that's sort of maybe a little bit unique. Since we've got 2 vehicles, we've got 2 cameras. If we can find a spot that we're not impinging on her privacy by just being 2 vehicles there, which is normal. But also to be able to have Karula in one place but 2 different camera angles. But I think there's another thing that I'd like to try and do, and that is maybe just capture a little bit of footage with Karula and the vehicle on camera, because that's a very, very rare thing for us to be able to do. So that would be a nice thing. Other than that, I had a really nice drive commuting into work this afternoon. Obviously I wasn't here this morning, so I only came in this afternoon. I had a nice commute. It's overcast weather normally lends itself to animal movement that one wouldn't normally see, and I found a bunch of lion that were walking around. The guys found them coming into camp this morning, coming into Djuma. But it seemed that they had moved out into the open. They were lying right out in a little bit of patch of grassland. And unfortunately, it's up in Manyaleti. I did take some pictures, and I'll post them for the likes of Sil and the lion people who try to monitor the lion and keep updated. But there was one lovely big blonde male who I think might have been the blonde male we saw a few weeks ago, with 3 fantastic females. I mean, they were really big, muscular girls who no doubt have pulled down giraffe and buffalo in their time. But also had a lovely time with an elephant bull that I know, because he has a very distinct tear in his ear. I know him from home, and I took a few photos of him. And we saw some buffalo. So we had a really nice commute, Jason and I, coming into Djuma this afternoon. But that doesn't really help us, because now we've got to go out and find what we can here at Djuma Game Reserve, and we're going to maybe head over to Arathusa as well. Maybe there's something over there too. So join us, and between Scott and myself, I hope we're going to find you some fantastic stuff. Let's go. There's news coming in that Scott is back at where Karula was found this morning with, we believe, maybe Djuma, and there are no cats there. The kill is still in the tree. So unless maybe the cat is there, we're not going to do the 2-vehicle thing with the cats. We're going to continue on and see what we can do. We're on the western side of the Mulwati River, the western side of the riverbed that actually creates Gari Dam, Djuma waterhole. So we'll stay this side, we'll leave Scott that side, and let's continue and see what else we can find for you this afternoon. There are still quite a few elephant moving around up in Manyaleti. I'm hoping that maybe there's some ellies that have started making their way down here, and that they are moving around here. It would be really nice to catch up with an ellie. Wishing everybody a wonderful 2015, and hoping that 2015 is going to be a better year for those that didn't have such a good year last year, but just hoping that it's just going to be a good year in general. Time could get all. Nice way to me personally, starting the year with the game drive, little land. Are you complaining? Little fun. I suppose 9 times out of 10 when we hear alarm calls, we actually don't get to find what it is. It might be something really simple, another must territory, or something that he's not too happy about. But you can't ignore it all. Every now and then it's necessary to stop and try and investigate why some of the birds are alarming. Usually it's the likes of a snake or an owl. Oh, I hope I'm going to get this. We've got a bunch of fishing spiders on the water of this pond. Because this is interesting. Particularly that very large one. I don't know if you can get it, Brian. One on the edge there. Maybe a little too close. No, there we go. Close. No, there we go. Fishing spider. The very, very fine hairs on the legs of the fishing spider help to retain buoyancy above the surface tension of the water, so they can't break through. There's a smaller one just behind it. Using the surface tension of the water, almost like a bat uses sonar, they use water waves to be able to tell whether prey is on the surface or just under the surface. So these spiders will catch fish, they'll catch tadpoles, they'll also maybe catch insects that are trapped on the surface of the water. There might be some arachnophobes out there, and I just wish I could explain to you how the fear of spiders is an induced fear, and how it's not a natural fear, because there's absolutely nothing to fear about them. They are perhaps one of the most incredible creatures that nature has been able to produce, because of the variety and the intricate lives that spiders live. And this is a spider that is actually able to dive underwater. It's not the diving bell spider. There is a spider that lives underwater, and it uses its silk to spin a web underwater that it fills with an air sac. And the silk is so fine that it doesn't allow the air to escape. So it creates what we might refer to as a diving bell. Very much the way diving bells were created many years ago, before aqualungs and scuba gear. But this spider, in defense, is able to actually dive underwater and hold on to vegetation, retaining a little bubble of air around the very fine hairs on the abdomen that allow it to breathe. But that is the very typical stance of the fishing spider, holding onto the substrate with a couple of legs just spread out on the surface tension of the water, and it'll pick up any vibration, whether it's on the surface or underneath, and they're able to dive right below them to pick up a fish or a tadpole or an aquatic insect. One of my favorite spiders. But then maybe just because we're looking at it, any spider that I look at the moment that I'm looking at, it becomes a favorite. Just a remarkable creature. So I'm hoping to hear from some of you this afternoon, whether it's through our email at questions@wildearth.tv, or whether it's through a tweet, hashtag Safari Live. Hoping to hear from some people. Oh, look, there's an acrea butterfly. Okay, we've got a little bit of an overcast sky, it's a very, very high ceiling, so there's no real chance of rain right now. All it really, it just suppresses the heat of the sun and the humidity. And that kind of bodes well for game viewing, because animals can move around, they're not stressed out by the heat, or they don't have to be energy conscious. Coming past Chelapan. Chelapan is named after the Shangaan word for a frog, which is chela. And I suppose we could go in a little bit and just have a look. I'm not going to see any frogs right now, although there are. Sounds like a couple of them calling. But it has filled up considerably over the from this last rainfall. And we have had some wonderful times here at Chelapan with previous litters of Karula's cubs. Particularly Mishu and Induna used to love lying under this gardenia right over the water, which is now, of course, it's wet underneath, but normally it gets quite dry down there. And believe it or not, as small as this little pan is, here's the gardenia just underneath that light, and we tried to do some frogging, caught a few frogs. Well, let's put it this way, we managed to find a few frogs. We didn't catch them, we found a few frogs that we were able to put on camera. It wasn't an easy exercise, but I was up to my waist in this water. There's even been a crocodile. I don't know if I mentioned that. There's even been a crocodile, a young crocodile, that lived in this little pan, and it's all of maybe about 15 meters wide. Have I ever seen any black leopards? That comes from Julia in Houston in Texas. Hi Julia. No, I've never seen a black leopard. Not even in captivity. I'm not one to go and visit captive cats. I can't stand that, I'm afraid. I'm really against the whole concept of captive cats, especially when cubs are used and used in a bad way. To have people posing with them with Christmas hats on, and it's just really sad when places do that. But no, I haven't seen a black leopard. There were reports about 25 years ago, I think, when I first started in the Sabi Sands back in the mid-90s. No, sorry, 80s, 86 or so. In the northwestern Sabi Sand, there was a report of a black leopard at that time, and the young lady that I was working with at the time, who was our caterer at the lodge that I was working at, was coming home late from White River one night, and she swears by having had a black leopard pass in front of her, but I've personally never seen one. Other than on film, of course. Black leopards are not a separate species. Black leopard are merely a melanistic version, or a melanistic form, a melanistic morph of our usual leopards. All it really is a recessive gene where the melanistic pigment in the animal, the very thing that creates the spots, the dark markings of the leopard, becomes very black. But actually you can, when in the right light, you can actually see the different markings and lots, rosettes. I saw a kudu down here. Let's just quickly go down sort of Spaghetti Junction. There was a kudu cow here. There's a bull. I saw a kudu cow, but it's actually, there's a bull coming out of the bush. Another, maybe I didn't see properly. Or I didn't see Hello boys. Three bulls. This might be our group of bulls. I can see the one that's got a very broad spread to his horns. This one seems to have quite a wide, or rather narrow spread. This might be a nice idea to see the difference between a couple of different kudu bulls and how their horns vary, because of course it is genetic. Not every animal is exactly the same. Every single animal on the planet is very, very different. And here we have a great example of two kudu bulls that we were able to watch. One with somewhat of a narrow spread to his horns, but a magnificent bull nonetheless. I mean, he is incredible. And when that other one comes out from behind the bushes, we'll be able to see how wide his horns spread out in a much deeper V. And here they'll be, come on, other one. We'd love them to walk together so we can see them in one frame. Well, I can still position myself that we can be able to do that. Because he's going to browse for a bit and then he's going to carry on moving this way. Other bull drinking a little bit from a little bit of a puddle that must be there in the grass. I can see that the difference in the grass is where his head is down. He must be drinking, and there we go. Just a little bit of water that must have collected there. And the other boy is coming out now too. The habit of standing behind bushes. Oops. See if we can get them both in the same frame. Although he's now quite well hidden, the other bull. It might very well be the same group of bulls that we've been seeing all over the place. They do tend to cover a lot of ground, but they also seem to be staying in the same general area, which is actually Djuma, strangely enough. They're getting too far away now. It's not going to work. I was hoping to maybe come this way, that we could get them both in the same frame, because it would be really nice if we could do that. But that's not going to work. They're hugging the drainage line. They're going to probably come out eventually later. Come out somewhere like Gowrie Dam, Djuma waterhole. If they follow this drainage line, this is the Milwaukee River that they're following. A lot of leadwoods, a lot of lovely big trees. There they go. There they're together now, almost. But quite deep in. But there's the other bull. See how wide his horns are spread? But we're starting to lose sight of them, so let's continue. Let's see what else we can find for you this afternoon. They are venturing into really thick vegetation. And rather than just look at a stripe or a hoof or a tip of a horn, we'll leave the boys to be. words, the albino, or the what creates an albino, or what an albino is. But the difference between albinism and Alison for a very question. Leucism is confused with them, and we've been talking melanism, which is the opposite of leucism. That's albinism. At least I don't think so. Maybe just straight. There would be four. I guess you could say there's sort of four forms of any animal. There's normal, which is what we all know. There's albinism, and there's leucism, and there's melanism. Now, melanism, as I've mentioned earlier, is merely a predominance of the melanistic pigment in an animal's body that tends to take over the animal's body. You find a number of species that are susceptible to melanism because they either carry the recessive gene for it, or I smell elephant tongue. Very strong scent there of Ellie. We'll have to nose around. Like the black leopard or the black panther, and we also there are a number of bird species that are melanistic. In fact, there are a number of hawk species that are susceptible is not the right word, but that maybe carry the gene stronger than other species. And for us here in Africa, one of the species of raptors that one tends to find as a melanistic individual more than any other is the gabar goshawk. More than any others, there are obviously other species that do occur in melanistic form, but the individual appears all black. Now, the opposite to that is leucism, and leucism is not a complete lack of pigment as albinism is. Leucism is the animal has all the right coloration for whatever when there are particular colours with like for a bird, say for the gabar goshawk, the red legs, the red beak, the eye colour, everything is there. It's the same as the leucistic lion, the white lions. They've still got the dark markings behind ears, they've still got normal coloured eyes, they've still got normal pigmentation in the nose and in the pads of the skin of the feet. But the coat colour appears to be white, and you can find leucistic animals in as well in a number of different species. Albinism, on the other hand, is a completely different thing entirely, because albinism doesn't really have its opposite, or not to my knowledge at any rate, because albinism is a complete lack of pigment right throughout the entire body. So there are very, very distinct characteristics of albinism in nature, and that is the very red eyes, the complete lack of pigment where there should be, which is nose and pads of the feet, or the ears, things like that. They just appear to be red or pink. So what it is just really a complete absence of pigment whatsoever, and that is albinism. And I think as humans we all know that we as humans are probably one of the most susceptible animals to albinism, because generally speaking in nature albinism doesn't last very long. Albinism, having no pigment whatsoever or complete lack of pigment, renders an individual, and no matter what species it is, it renders an individual to sunstroke and sunburn and well, highly sensitive to light. Whereas leucism does not. Leucism is not as sensitive to light as albinism. Didn't copy that. But while we're wandering around here at Treehouse Dam, and I'm actually going to make my way over to Arathusa again, since I've got this vehicle today. And we're going to swap. Scotty will take this vehicle another day and I'll take Jigga. But for now, at any rate, I'm going to hand you over to Scott and see what Scotty's got for you over the other side of the Milwaukee River to the east of us. And I'm going to continue to follow up on whatever I can and find something for you. So I'll see you all later, folks. Goodbye and enjoy.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome from myself, Scott Dyson, and from VM, who's on camera, to the Sabi Sands. And we have found ourselves in a very exciting situation here. However, at the moment there's not much excitement going on. So basically where we followed Karula to this morning is where she did indeed have a kill. Now we did speculate that she could well have a kill in this area, and she actually took us right to the base of the tree that she had the kill in this morning. And on my side, I didn't do what I should have done and look up into the tree, because that is where we have found her kill. Well, as you can see, as VM zooms in, there's an adult female impala draped over some of the branches of this tamboti tree, and we assume that she made the kill last night. So a huge success for her. Every meal is a huge success, and after her traumatic day yesterday, losing one of her cubs, it is fortunate that she did manage to make a kill. It is also fortunate to put things in perspective, folks, because she lost a life. Well, she lost one of her cubs, which was obviously traumatic for her, and within 24 hours she had made a kill of her own, taking another animal's life, and in all likelihood leaving the baby lamb of this impala stranded without a mother. So if I were to choose a fate, I would rather have lost a cub than lost a mother. So that is something to bear in mind, folks. And nature is harsh, but it's harsh for all the animals out here. So you can't take just her side. Obviously it is very sad what happened, but it is good just to put things in perspective that death does happen a lot out here and it is natural. So an interesting kind of full circle of events has gone on here. Now the interesting story about this, or the kind of behind the scenes story as to how we have established that there was a kill here, is that Alex, who's in control this afternoon, headed out midday just to get out on a drive and learn some of the roads. He is going to be increasing his time on the vehicle, doing some presenting over the next few weeks, so that is something to look forward to. And he was out here familiarizing himself with the roads, but when he headed out, I gave him directions to where we left Karula this morning, and he came back and was sitting with her, and she was fast asleep and not doing anything. And he heard bones crunching in the distance, and shortly after he heard the bones crunching, she got up and led him back to this tamboti tree that she did come to and sniff this morning while we were still alive, sniffed the base of it, and he was up the tree with the impala kill, and there was a little bit of snarling and hissing between the two of them, and he eventually ran down the tree and ran away, and then she went up and did a little bit of feeding. So a big thank you to Alex for ensuring that we did find this kill, because I could well have come back here this afternoon, not found her where I left her, not seen this kill in the tree. And the bush that she's lying in right now is exceptionally thick. Vim will just pan across for you. So she is somewhere just to the right of that fallen down tree that leads into the thickets. But it is exceptionally thick in there. And no way of us obtaining any decent visual of her. So the plan is for myself and VM to wait here for as long as it takes for her to wake up, or more importantly, which I should have mentioned a bit more clearly earlier, is that one of the leopards that were up the tree feeding on the carcass were what Alex thinks to be Djuma, and that does make sense. The likelihood of her allowing one of her sons to feed on her kill is more likely than that of a complete stranger. Having said that though, a young male leopard, even of 2 years old, is bigger than a female and more powerful, so who knows exactly which leopard it was, but Alex is under the impression that it was Djuma from the visual that he got. And Djuma could come back at any stage to continue feeding, and she could get up at any stage to continue feeding. And what I can assure you is that if and when he does come back, she is not going to be very happy with him, so we can expect to see quite a lot of hissing and snarling, and who knows, potentially even a few little feisty paws being thrown around, because he is getting to a stage now, or both of her sons are getting to a stage now, where she will tolerate them less and less, and she's got her own life to live now. She's done what she needs to do for them, and they are going to start getting less and less welcome invitations to situations like this from her. So it's something to really look forward to later on this afternoon when they do get up, or when they do, either one of them come to the kill. We're in a position here where we're hoping we are on the right place to capture her climbing up this tamboti tree. You can see there's a slight bend to the left, and we're hoping she is going to use that slight gradient to aid her climbing up this tree. But until she does get more active, myself and VM will simply be sitting here waiting. It is a beautiful place to be waiting for some action, and like I say, we do have some good action in store for us. It is simply a waiting game for now, and something certainly worth waiting for. I couldn't think of a better situation to be in than this, and especially the fact that we have the two vehicles out now, so instead of sitting with us here waiting for things to happen, you can follow Mark around and see what him and Brian managed to find this afternoon. And there are a lot of other animals out here, so the fact that we do have these ones in the bank, so to speak, for some guaranteed good viewing later. So like I say, it is great that we have two vehicles out. Mark is just sorting out a small sound issue on his vehicle, and as soon as that is fixed, we will head back to him. Something Alex did also mention from his little midday safari out here was that he did see a young impala all on its own nearby. On our way in this morning, this afternoon, myself and VM did have a close look for any signs of a stranded impala lamb, but didn't see one. But it could well be the offspring of this impala that is now up the tamboti tree. So that is also something to bear in mind. There may be another easy meal for Karula or Djuma if they do come back into this area. Well, I'm sure he will, and she is still here. So that is also something, that an important part of the story that should be told. And other than that, we don't have too many updates from the area we're sitting in. Although, come to think of it, I was just mentioning to okay, copy, thanks Alex. Sorry folks, Alex was just giving me a little bit more information, and he said we are in the right position here to capture the leopards going up the tree, whichever one of them comes here first, because it is the same route that he saw Djuma come down and also Karula go up. So we are in the right position, which is good, and he has double checked on some images that he took while he was here, relative to some other images of Djuma, and he says it definitely is Djuma. So that is nice to know. What I was saying though, before Alex did give me a little bit more information there, is that there's a tree just in front of the vehicle here, and now looking at its bark, which VM is going to zoom into for you now, some of you that do follow trees more closely may be thinking it is a marula tree. And yes, indeed, it does have bark quite similar to marula, puzzle piece bark structure, with a lot of different mottled colors amongst them. Now sadly there isn't another marula nearby to show you what the proper bark of a marula would look like, but this in fact is called a false marula. And this is for obvious reasons. It looks like a marula, but it's not. For me, the main features that do make it look like a marula is the bark rather. The leaves and branches up in the canopy are less like that of a marula, but the bark is very similar. So this is a false marula tree, and a beautiful specimen at that, and VM is doing an exceptional job at making it look just as good as it is here in real life. So thanks VM for that great shot, and just something I thought we could point out while we were here. Okay, we've got a question coming through. Okay, so question from Kathy in Tennessee. Good afternoon, Kathy. Before I continue with this question, I'm just going to ask VM to try and pan across. I've just seen some starlings going into a nest. You see the dead tree, not the first one that you're aiming at, the second one behind. And that main fork in the second one behind there. You can see, folks, the dead tree that's in the center of your shot has got a small hole at the base of that main fork, and you can actually see the starling in the far left of the screen now, about midway up, sitting in another bush, and I've just seen it fly up to that hole and obviously drop off some food for the chicks or the female that may be in there. So that's cool. It's our first starling nest that we found, and I am on a little bit of a nest quest at the moment. And I just saw that as we were receiving that question from Kathy in Tennessee, which I will get to shortly. But something for us to bear in mind, and we can at least keep an eye on that nest this afternoon and for the coming weeks. But back to Kathy's question. Now Kathy is amazed at the fact that Karula did manage to get this impala ewe up into the tree so high, and Kathy, it is remarkable the strength and agility of these. Look at the route that she would have had to drag this carcass that would have in all likelihood been heavier than her. It really is and in terms of relative weights of versus the female leopard, Karula, I'm guessing, weighs around 50 kilograms. She could be of so calculation and hard to judge exactly, but let's say that she weighs about 50 kilograms. The impala, I'm guessing, weighs the similar, potentially slightly more. What would have made a difference is that she may have disemboweled the impala on the ground, and that would remove a lot of the weight from the impala that she would therefore not have to carry up the tree, of all the rumen and all the stomach contents, which do add on probably at least 10 kilograms to the mass of the impala. but it really is remarkable that she managed to get it up there, and it would have certainly been a wonderful sequence of events to watch, but sadly we didn't get to see that. But we are in line for some other great viewing this afternoon. But thanks for that, Kathy, and I couldn't agree with you more. It is an incredible accomplishment for her to be able to get prey the equivalent size of herself, potentially heavier, up a tree, and doing all of this with the prey dangling out of her mouth. I mean, imagine trying to carry something, your own body weight, in your mouth up a tree. It's hard to comprehend, but leopards are the best at doing that out of the African cats, or the larger African cats. Cheetah are terrible climbers, and so are lion typically, and despite that, the two of them, the cheetah and the lion, wouldn't even attempt to get a kill up a tree, whereas the leopard have mastered the art, and it certainly does pay off for them, because in an area like this, with lion that would steal from them, and with hyena that would steal from them, getting them up the trees like this certainly increases her chances of holding on to kills for as long as possible. This tree in specific would be an interesting one to see lions trying to climb up. I think there's a chance a lioness would make it up there, a fairly good chance, but with lions, getting up is often not the hardest part, but coming down, which can get tricky. I've seen terrible footage of a lion trying to climb down a tree, and it fell into the fork of the tree and broke its back. So they do sometimes come unstuck when they are climbing trees, the lion. So all very interesting, the dynamics between the different cats and how they have slightly evolved in different ways to be better at certain things than the other. Alex, how's Mark doing with his audio problems over there? Because okay, good. Well, the good news is Mark has fixed up his audio issues, folks, and until these leopards become more active, which they will, and I'm hoping shortly. It is nice and cool this afternoon, so the temperature is in our favor, but the fact that both her and Kunyuma's bellies are full means that they will be slightly lazy and less likely to become active immediately, but at any stage one of them could come for another feed. So that is something to look for. Oh, there's a woodpecker. Oh no, I knew I was chancing it there, folks, but I just saw a very pretty woodpecker. It looked like a cardinal woodpecker scurrying along a branch, but it took off out of view as soon as I pointed it out to VM. Show you the woodpecker another day. Like I said, folks, a little bit later, I think it'll be most productive and enjoyable for you to cut over back to Mark and enjoy the adventure that he can take you on this afternoon, while myself and VM are waiting here for the leopards to get active. So from myself and VM and the impala and the leopard, we will see you shortly.
And you're back with me. You're back on Zanele or Wendy or the other jigger. Welcome back. We are actually going to one of the most beautiful places here at Djuma Game Reserve for this time of the day, this time of the afternoon. It's a very special spot that has a western, or almost a northwestern slope actually, out onto the escarpment and the mountains. And most of the weather that's been through has been a wonderful cleansing thing. It's cleared most of a lot of those haze, for want of a better word. It's not smog, and it's not, oh my word, there's ground hornbill. just flown out of this marula tree. There's another one in the marula tree. Hasn't flown out yet. Two in the marula tree. The next one's going to fly shortly. Are you with me, Brian?
Yep.
And there's another one. Three. They've four. There we are. The four that live here. Alex is telling me that there are four that live here in Impala Plains. Well, I must actually let friends of mine know because they're doing a hornbill study. But they chased a martial eagle. There was a martial eagle sitting in a tree, and that flew off. And it was actually about the same wingspan as they have, maybe a bit bigger. But I wonder if we're going to get to see them. These are one of the. This is the ground hornbill, or this is the southern ground hornbill. This is going to be South Africa or Africa's dodo. I mean, Africa, I suppose, has already had a dodo. Count the islands where the dodo was found. But on the mainland of Africa, the bird species that is going to probably define our existence here as humans, because of their habitat being destroyed so much. They require big trees. They need big trees for nesting. And actually elephants are their best friends. I can see one through a gap there. I don't know how close we're going to get to them, because quite clearly if we have to even try and get through this bush, even after it's so wet. Just a little movement. I mean, they're like giant turkeys in a way. But being hornbills, they have a very, very long beak, very huge casque on the beak. Three of them that I can see just here in the picture, but just because of movement. And if only, maybe if we go, I doubt it if we go to Triple M, but maybe we can get a better gap through here. There's an old track. I think. It'd be nice to just get a small glimpse of them. I don't know if any of you have ever seen them. This is the southern ground hornbill. We see the yellow-billed hornbill and the red-billed hornbill and the grey hornbill, the three species that are very dominant here. But they're small and they fly around in the trees. But these hornbills are adapted to more of a terrestrial lifestyle, but they still require. There, I can see one. There we go. Through this gap. Maybe we'll catch a glimpse. Not enough of a glimpse. Let me move a little bit more. I can see them through there, but to get that on camera. I have a couple of friends up in the Klaseri and the Timbavati area that are doing a project on hornbills, their numbers, their distribution. Something else was running there. Come here, you can see one run. There's one through there, but it's not a great view. No. Oh well. I don't want to push them too much, and they're going closer to the road actually. They're getting closer to Triple M, so maybe by the time I extricate myself from this little excursion, I'll catch up with them as they come out into the open. They live in family groups. There's always an adult pair that are the mating pair, and they will have the offspring from maybe their previous litter or litters even. So normally in groups of at least 3 to 5 or 3 to 7, depending on how many offspring they have, because when the new offspring are born, they've got a previous year's offspring helping to look after the new ones, and so they live in an extended family, very much like the white-crowned shrike, the helmeted shrikes. What else can I think of? Warthogs. Warthogs also live like that. But they'll only raise one chick at a time, mostly. Even though more might be born. And there have been projects to try and improve their numbers that have been the same kind of projects that they've been on whooping cranes and vultures, condors, a variety of birds whose existence has been threatened by loss of habitat and persecution. And so there have been chicks that have been raised, hand raised, but puppet raised more than hand raised, because the youngsters never ever get to have to deal with the human being. They only ever get to do with these puppets that have the appearance of the adult of their species. And it's only later on that you can then, I don't know, it's an intricate process. Raising birds. And the idea is to try and release them back into their habitat once they've been hand-reared, or rather puppet-reared, because if they're puppet-reared, they don't have, well then humans aren't imprinted in them, so they will fear humans all the time. Sorry, rams. Okay, I'm trying a little alternative. Coming up to the northern area, the north of both the Arathusa Safari and north of Djuma, and bisected by this main road, hoping that maybe we can venture in here and maybe there's something else to see. The best thing would be to find elephant tracks. Alex coming. Doing a radio check from this area. Had to boost the sound there because this wiring is having a huge effect on the sound, so actually all my talking has actually been for nothing. Can I see that plug, please?
Oh, we're not live.
No. Is it in here?
Yeah, just put it out.
I can't even hear him. There we go again.
Yeah.
Problem is that the wires that are touching, that's more important than anything else. And yeah, it's this earth wire. All of this is really an Audie Murphy job. I don't know who did this. No. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, I know. We've got a problem. You know that. Let's just go like that for now. With, if we can find a cable tie or something, so that it doesn't move, we can just all put it onto the strap and keep it still. Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry folks, we're just trying to fix a sound issue that's here. Oh, you've got it. Good. It might vibrate a little bit. We want to keep them separate.
That's easy to handle like that.
But how's it sounding?
Fine.
Okay. I guess it's one thing that we have mechanical issues and we have all sorts of issues with the vehicles because they are working under conditions that are a little bit extreme. But I suppose it's more so for the camera and the equipment, especially with the road that we're on now. There's a road that's going to be turning off into Arathusa that I want to take while I'm here. But yes, this vibration, obvious players that kind of whip themselves loose. And apologies for that, but that's what live broadcast is fixing things on the fly. So hopefully the sound's getting through to you a lot better now. And then we'll deal with the more permanent repair later. Yeah, here we go. Here's the road that we can take. We'll just take this one because we can. Into a new area and a new place, new trees. I don't know if the sound of these cicadas are coming through, but it's a very, very typical summer sound. I think in most parts of the world you'll find the cicadas singing like this in summer. I was so amazed that even walking through Manhattan, I heard cicadas singing, and in Brooklyn. Interestingly, the cicadas are one of the insects that is so unique amongst other insects that make a noise, in that the cicadas or cicadas, or I know they even referred to as locusts and grasshoppers and bugs and all sorts of other things, but the true cicadas, there are not many insects that make noise that actually have an organ designed for noise. In much the same way as we have such an extensive voice box or vocal cord that allows us such a variety or varied speech compared to other mammals. But for the insects, there are a lot of insects that make noise, and they're either rubbing their wings or their legs or their abdomen or combination of the above. They are always rubbing other body parts together, and so the noise is never a constant noise. You'll find that with a lot of other insects the noise is intermittent. It's because there are parts of the insect that are a washboard type of design, and by rubbing on them they can either make very, very high pitched or very, very deep, whatever sound it is. But there's a backward and forward motion to create the noise, and that's reflected in the noise. And then the cicadas, why it sounds like this just constant singing, is because they have an organ specifically designed for that. So it's not a case of rubbing two things together. And of course only the males have that. Baby francolins gone deep in the grass. I don't think we will. Where's that female? She's also got a couple. But crested francolin that have some chicks, but they're so tiny they're actually running around these females, but they can't be seen. There's another one there, but trying to catch up. And we're scaring them. Interesting, we're in a place that I've never seen before, and I'm sure some of you have never seen this part before. We spend a lot of time on Djuma, and finally we're actually getting some time here on Arathusa Safari Lodge. Looks like some tracks in the road. I guess it's mostly because we're going into the sun. We're going to start heading east again because we're trying to reach sort of one of the westernmost points we can, so that for the better part of the late afternoon we'll have the sun behind us and the beautiful light. There's a fairly dark sky, and you can't get better light than when you have a lovely western sunset with the dark sky in the east. Unfortunately, yeah, looking into the light might be a few spots that we need to clear. It's looking fine to me, except there's this big splotch. Yeah. Need to see more of the road than more of me. Marulas are falling. Not many ripe ones falling, a lot of green ones are falling, but it's marula time is starting. The marula fruits, although not ripe yet, but some are falling. no sign of elephant. I'm wondering why they're not visiting this part of the world. There's still a lot of elephant up in Manyaleti, still very busy. Maybe it's just less traffic up there, who knows. But that wouldn't explain why there often are elephants here. But so far not even any tracks. There was just one little moment I thought I smelled some Ellie. I think we're now on the boundary with Elephant Plains. Need to const an electronic device. What have we got here? We've got a pond, some mud wallows, tree frog nests. This is called Shigodi Pan. Now that puts that into perspective. Shigodi Pan. Not too sure what God means. It's quite strange that there's a very familiar feeling or feeling of exploration here, and this is the Sabi Sand. I've been in and out of the Sabi Sand for decades, and driven around a number of different areas of the Sabi Sands, from way down in the south to up in to the central, to the west and the northwest. But I've also had the fortune and the fortune. The luck to be able to go and explore other parts of Africa, in East Africa and Zambia and Botswana, and driving a new area here in the Sabi Sand is as exhilarating. I've never seen these roads that we're on right now. And although it's quite homogeneous bushveld to what we have over on Djuma, it's new. There are no experiences here that I can reminisce about that help me remember an area, and well, quite exciting seeing new things. There's a marula tree I've never seen before. That's quite a dark sky that's hanging over the Kruger National Park, sort of east to Mozambique, and looks like our weather might not be over just yet, but it's light is what I was looking for, so that whatever we find now is going to be bathed in the brightest light we can put on it. So all eyes on whatever's moving. Especially the silver cluster leaf. You can see the silver cluster leaf that really shines in this late afternoon light. It was like this last year, hey Brian? In Timbavati, we were, rather in Thornybush, Timbavati, sorry. And Brian and I explored new areas in Thornybush. Oh, okay, EP boundary, that's where we were. Let me see. No, not EP, it's Simbambili that we were at. Okay. Talking about a leopard and a cub on the EP boundary. It's a little bit far away for us, where we can't get to. That could even be Shadow, Tingana. Eagle. Oh, off she goes. Full crop too. Unfortunately it flew. We might catch up. It's kind of flying up towards the airstrip where we're heading. So it could be a Wahlberg's, dark-phased Wahlberg's eagle. Alex, I was going through a dip there. I wasn't reading you very well. Could you repeat that, please? Maybe we can get that little bunting because it's insisting on stopping us. Keeps flying ahead of us and then stopping on the road. Also some testiculars shouting quite noisily off to our right. Question coming in from Virginia Beach, from Bob. If the Illy groups move around quite a lot between Sabi Sand and Kruger, very much so, Bob, they do. There's been a lot of research done on the elephant movement because it's vital to know what elephants are doing, and you can't, as much as I'm loath to say it, you can't manage a population, because unfortunately humans, it's necessary to manage a population, but one can't manage a population of whatever animal it is without having an understanding of what that animal needs and what that animal does that animal. And far too often in the past it was a very simple matter of counting numbers and making calculations that the vegetation can only hold so many numbers of those species, so it was necessary to control the species numbers. In the interim, of course, there's been a lot more learnt about nature conservation, about the requirements of elephants, but not only that, there has also been a vast increase in the land or the area that elephants have to or are able to move in, and the larger the area, the more natural the habitat can be left to do its own thing without too much human interference, which is what has created these vast national parks and reserves, some of them even cross-boundary reserves. So yes, in a very big way, the dropping of the fences, not only with the Sabi Sands and other neighboring reserves, but the Sabi Sands and the Kruger National Park, has shown that elephants are returning to probably a seasonal movement that was once there all along, and that a little bit of fencing might have curtailed it for a while. Certainly didn't stop it, because I lived with one of those fences and they were constantly being pushed down by elephants. They were not very elaborate fences. If you're interested in elephant conservation and elephant movement within the Kruger National Park, and even up in Kenya too, by the way, and have a look at a website called SaveTheElephants.org. Look at this beautiful, sorry, this is just really pretty, this most magnificent dead leadwood. Although I'm just going to go forward a bit, Brian, because it's actually got to stand on its own, and the knobthorn on its own, and there's a dead knobthorn in the background. The three of them have to make up that picture like that. But this is a magnificent old leadwood that probably lived for thousands, maybe 1,000 years or more. It's exceptionally big at the base. I would say a good maybe 4 feet across. It's probably been dead for a few hundred years, judging by the amount of weathering of the smaller branches up at the top. I mean, I've known leadwoods that have been dead for half a century, at least, because I've known, and they haven't changed shape one iota. So this is an old skeleton that is so heavy a wood that it can't rot. Insects don't really get into it, so it only weathers away in time like rock. And with the size of the base of this leadwood, I would say it's been here for a long, long time. Pity there isn't an elephant standing here in the middle of these trees. I'll try and arrange it for tomorrow or the next day. I'll send a message to my Ellie friends. But SaveTheElephants.org, they have, of the elephants that move around this area, there are a number of collared elephants. Elephants that are carrying tracking devices that lead to a better understanding of the areas and the time of year and the kind of data that is vital to understanding elephant movement, elephant requirements. And that, coupled with other studies of vegetation requirements, things like that. Even though we're in millions of acres of a national park, ultimately there is humanity on the outskirts of that, and there is always going to be a conflict between humans and wildlife, and especially if that wildlife is something as big as an elephant, and there is the entity of the human nature of harvesting food, of keeping food, of growing food, and the misinterpretation of elephants thinking that it's not for them, and not understanding why the humans want all of it to themselves. So crops and elephants and humans are a bad kind of combination. And the idea of not only studying elephants and what they do in their natural environment, but is also studying and getting an idea of how they're impacting, or how human expansion is impacting on their lives. But not only that, I suppose also just the whole human-animal conflict, the human-elephant conflict that exists from Asia all the way down into Africa, where humans will grow food and elephants want to eat it and don't understand why not. I'm trying to think what this tree could be, because I'm not really sure. And also thanks everybody for all the New Year wishes. Alex just reminding me that there are a lot of New Year wishes, not many questions coming through. So if you do have any questions, by the way, just in case you have anything to ask, questions at WildEarthTV, and of course the Twitter place, that thing where you can tweet on Twitter like a Tweety bird. You can hashtag Safari Live is where to go for that, or just include hashtag Safari Live in your tweet. There's kudu cow, look at that. Just what I wanted, an animal with this lovely light. Well, the sun's not out right now, but we'll just stop here because we don't want to disturb her too much. Well, she's getting irritated by an oxpecker. But listening to our approach, I'm quite attentive. Let's see if we can roll forward with the gravity drive. Well, it does shake the picture a little bit, it's a bit bumpy. Over the bump. Definitely healthy kudu cow. Just sneak forward if we can to get an obstructed view. And I pushed it just too far. She had a lovely white tail that she curls over her back. She doesn't want to draw attention to the other kudu in the area, because we're not really a predator. She just wants to alert them. She's running and she's turned around and looking back at us. But by showing that tail and running back towards what might be the rest of the group, she's got their attention, because that little flash of white, they would have seen that no matter where they were or what they were doing. And now just flicking the tail, a little bit of indecision to calm them down again, because now I think she knows what we are and no danger. So the flicking of the tail, more a gesture to relax the rest of the herd. She still doesn't trust us because she's standing guard. Stalemate. I guess we'll leave her to it then. We'll show her that we're not here to disturb her and her family. So we'll just wander off and pretend we weren't even looking at her in the first place. Unfortunately, with animals and animal behavior and the way things work in nature, when you're looking at something, especially being a human, being perceived as a predator because of everything about us. When we look at things, invariably they get self-conscious, but what it is that they see themselves being targeted, because it's only really when a predator looks at them that the predator is going to go for them, if they manage to catch that moment, because sometimes the first thing they know, the predator's already running. But that eye contact is so typical of almost every creature I've ever come across. Maybe some ants can be excluded from that, but wasps, flies, even mosquitoes, there are so many things that react to that initial eye contact, because it doesn't matter if we're in a vehicle, there's intent or there's some message that creatures are instinctively able to receive by another animal from a different species looking at them. Because the only reason for that would be really to hunt them. When we find zebra and giraffe and wildebeest and impala and a lot of these herbivores all grazing and browsing together, very, very seldom that an animal of one species will approach the animal of another species, or even look at them for that matter. There's no need to, because you're all comfortable in each other's company. Everybody's just there. Everybody's doing their own thing, and there's just a greater chance of survival because there's so many species together and so many individuals. And then here we come along as humans. So we just by looking at that kudu today made her react differently to if we hadn't even looked at her. And I've done that on many occasions where I see them out of the corner of my eye and I won't even stop and look at them. And they just carry on doing what they normally do. They totally ignore you. And I've done that on foot, I've done it in a vehicle. It's uncanny how many times I've been walking and sometimes going through relatively thick vegetation like this, because you're trying to get from one open area to another and you're compelled to go through drainage lines, and you come across kudu or bushbuck or any of their cousins, the nyala, or even in Botswana, Setutunga. How if they stand dead still and you don't notice them, or even if you pretend not to notice them, you can walk by and they won't even react. But as soon as you look at them, they'll react and they run away. So to some degree, diverting the eyes and not looking at something is advantageous. I know we've talked about it with predators, talked about it with how important it is maybe with the great apes, like when you visit gorilla or chimps habitat and you're meeting them, not to make eye contact with them because they have slightly different rules to maybe the cats. Personally, I always look at cats, but I always look at them in a way that's non-threatening. Hyena dung here, must be a den somewhere. Yeah, that recent one. Pardon? Oh, he's got a leopard stalking. Okay, go. I only...
Watch very closely, folks. She's stalking a baby impala. And there's nothing I can really say now, folks, but this impala's got very little chance. She's just in front of the vehicle and she is going to go for it now, folks. So now you've got a very good idea of how close she is to the impala, folks. She's just at the front of the vehicle, and this impala sadly is in trouble. Wow, this is incredible, folks, to see this. It's very fortunate, and I'm just going to keep quiet now because there's nothing more I can say. She's just waiting, in all likelihood, for it to move before she pounces, but Well, folks, I know what we're watching is difficult and traumatic, and it isn't. I had a slow and miserable death. And without its mother at this young age, it would be doomed. So, as harsh as it is what we are seeing, it is probably a blessing in disguise for this young impala. And also just so relevant to what happened to Karula yesterday. She lost one of her youngsters yesterday, and in less than 36 hours she's killed two other animals, a mother and its calf. So it is a life that they are involved in killing. So when it happens to them, yes, it's not ideal, but it all happened so quickly that I didn't even have time to call in the game drive vehicles. But thankfully one has arrived now to view the remainder of what happens here. But again, I cannot stress how fortunate we were to be in a situation to see such a stealthy predator doing what it does best. And it may well now carry this young impala up the jackalberry tree that we can see just behind it. So Via might just pan up a little bit and show you the tree where she could well be hitting. And I'm not going to move from here. I'm guessing she could well climb up from the side of the tree, and Vim will do his best to show you her going up and hoisting this kill there. She's just behind a bush now. She has stopped temporarily, but I'm fairly convinced that you can just see the tip of her tail. But I'm fairly convinced she will hoist it up this jackalberry.
We might have to just head back to where Scott is, because evidently Karula's just killed a young impala and we're having a bit of signal issues with Scott. So I'm just going to breeze. We're going to head up past Arathusa airstrip, make our way back towards where Scott is, and hopefully between the two of us we can try and bring you some more of Karula this first day of the year of 2015. Happy New Year, everybody. Brian and I have been covering a fair portion of Arathusa. Not really much that has been happening here that we've found. Found some kudu. And should actually go the other way because we don't want to lose daylight. So we come up here to Buffalo Pan. Franklin's making a noise over there. Who's that on the airstrip? Waterbuck? Maybe? I don't know, something. Kudu something. Yeah, some kudu. Kudu, wildebeest, zebra. Okay, so we got to go straight back to Karula. I think there's a picture back there. Go, go, go. And go, go, go. Yes, we need to have that as quick as possible.
Welcome back, folks. Apologies for the break in transmission. She hasn't headed up this marula tree yet, but she is about to. You can see she's just trying to plan her route up. And she is still gaining her breath. Even though it was quite a short stalk that we witnessed, it consumed a lot of her energy, being poised and stalking for that period of time, and then also dispatching this young impala. So you can see she is getting her breath back. That on top of the fact that she does have a full belly. I'm going to try and reposition very slightly to get a visual of her going up the tree, a better visual. So I hope this doesn't cut the transmission again. Doesn't try and go up the tree while we do this. Oh. Well, we got it just in time there, folks. Sorry, Jim. Well, folks, we really are being treated to an incredible display of what these animals do best, and we should really be trying to enjoy the footage we're seeing as much as possible. This young impala lose its life, it is an important step for the leopard to continue living, and it is certainly providing us with some incredible footage. To be able to see leopards like this in their natural environments, hunting, climbing trees, hoisting kills, is a privilege that not many people get to see. And in all my years of watching these animals on a daily basis, we very seldom get to see sightings of this quality, and especially these animals hunting. And I mean, what an incredible view you're getting here, folks. We all are. It really is just magical. Have of her. I wouldn't say she's directly above us, but she is not far away from us, and we've got an abnormally good and clear view of her. And who would have thought we would have been in for so much action so quickly? Myself and VM decided to come and have a look for this baby impala that we didn't see on the way in, but we knew of it because of Alex being here early. Alex in control came out here earlier today and let us know that he saw this baby impala here, and it is 99% likelihood that it is the youngster of the female impala that Karula killed last night. And we came down to have a look for the impala, and it didn't take us long to find it, and minutes after finding it, the impala was trying to call its mother, and Karula heard these contact calls of the impala trying to rejoin with its mother, and it was at this moment that Karula came out of the bushes very quickly. Us. it all happened so quickly, folks, and again I cannot stress that it is traumatic to see, and just laying eyes on this impala for the first time got both VM and myself emotional. Alex even came across on the radio, and he had just seen the look on my face because VM had the camera on me, and he asked what was wrong, and when we panned across to their baby impala, he understood. And it was just probably 30 seconds to a minute after that initial sight we had of her, or this young impala, that Karula was then stalking her. Again, folks, it is also important to realize that this impala would have been doomed without its mother. It's still too young to fend for itself and still requires milk. And due to this fact, it could well be a blessing that Karula has managed to do what she's done. Oh, folks, I wonder what will happen next, because for those of you that have just joined us, just to recap, we followed Karula back to this general area this morning, and she did have a kill here that we weren't aware of until Alex found it at midday when he came out to see if he could spend some time with Karula and get out of control. And he did certainly spend some time with Karula, and it was while he was spending time with her between drives that she led him back to the kill. And not only was there just the kill that Alex found, but Djuma, one of her 2-year-old sons, was in the area, so he could well be coming back into this area to continue feeding on the impala that's in the tambuti tree, the adult impala. And she may well start to feed on this one, but it will be, oh, that's a beautiful shot. She may be compelled to come down the tree and potentially try and chase Djuma away, or certainly let her know that she's not happy that he's eating all of her food. So that, and we can see her now still panting. It's a combination of regaining her breath from the exertion of the hunt, even though it was a short one. But also on top of that, she has been feeding on this impala, the other impala, the adult, and all of that meat is pushing up against her diaphragm, causing her to be able to take short breaths. But she doesn't seem too phased, and she certainly doesn't have too much to worry about in the next few hours, because she's got lots of food, and food is critical in nature. It's so important for them to feed, and it can be often their most difficult and challenging process, archers, is feeding themselves. So she's onto a good thing here. Phew. So from myself and VM sitting here for an hour and a half with not a hell of a lot going on, things did escalate incredibly quickly, and it's an important lesson and that I'd like to share with you, and one that I've learnt over the time here in the bush, is that by spending time with animals, even if nothing is happening, it can change very, very drastically, very, very suddenly. And that is exactly what happened this afternoon, and so fortunate that we do have two vehicles and we can bounce between Mark and myself in situations like this, because if it was just one vehicle out, I'm not sure if we would have stayed here for the whole afternoon. So just so happy that everything worked out the way it did this afternoon, that Alex came out at midday and confirmed that she was still here, because I could well have come back here, looked for her in the last spot where I left her, not found her and not found anything else. So a big thank you also to Alex, who did play a large part in providing us with the intelligence that we needed to be here this afternoon. Ooh. Shortly. I'm not sure how much chopping and changing she's going to do. Good afternoon, Cynthia from Ohio, and welcome on board. Cynthia's asked whether both of the kills are on the same tree, and the answer to that is no. This tree here is called a jackalberry tree. It's a beautiful, beautiful big tree, one of the most beautiful jackalberry trees on the property. And she's just carried the impala up into here, and sadly, due to the angle that we parked at now, we aren't going to be able to show you where the other kill is, but it is basically directly behind where we are now. What a beautiful shot that is. Thanks, Fiam. So the other tree is directly behind it. Viam's just doing a few calculations to see if he can potentially show you, and he is going to attempt to. So here goes, folks. It's not easy, he does have to swivel around to the other side of the vehicle. But the other kill now is basically directly behind us, and you can even see in that tambuti tree the leg of it dangling down and a bit of the body there. So thank you, Viam, for that nifty camera work, and thank you, Cynthia, for the question. That does clear it up for everyone out there. And sorry, I should have mentioned that before and given you a better idea. So it is basically directly behind where we are now, and as you're aware, Karula is just up in this tree behind us here, or in front of us, depending which way you're facing, I guess. Whew. Really, folks, in my whole career here in the Sabi Sounds, which is one of the best places to view leopards, this has been probably the most perfect hunt that I've ever witnessed in terms of the clarity of the sighting. We didn't miss anything there. It was out in the open, and it was a unique sighting and a uniquely easy kill for her to make. If the rest of the herd of impala were here, obviously she wouldn't have nearly had it nearly that easily. She wouldn't have had it nearly that easily, is what I was trying to say. But she was probably 5 meters away from this baby impala, and even still, she took her time before she did that final pounce. So it's a uniquely open and clear and great visual of these animals hunting, because it can often be in thick bush, and we saw everything basically directly in front of us. I did snap off 1 or 2 photos, but it all happened so quickly that I didn't do the best job. But I will be posting the photos onto Facebook, onto my profile page, on Facebook. So there will be some snaps for you to see that I did manage to capture, and it'll be interesting to see the screenshots that you guys managed to capture. Whew. Well, she does seem to have found a slightly more comfortable spot, and she's not tossing and turning as much as she was earlier. I've just heard what I think is an African green pigeon landing in this tree, and often when they do land, they do call. So I'm hoping we're going to hear one of my favorite bird calls, the African green pigeon. I didn't see it, I actually just heard it coming into land. They've got a very distinctive landing that can be quite loud. So that is something we can look forward to, the call of the African green pigeon. We can also look forward to Djuma, Karula's son, coming back into this area. I'm almost certain he will come back to try and continue his free meal that he's been cashing in on. And it will certainly be interesting to see her behavior towards him, because even though he is her son, he's beginning to overstay his welcome a little bit and take liberties of her hunting and her skills, and she's got future generations to raise now. She's done her job with Djuma in quarantine. So we may have a hissing and spitting Karula. We've just got a question come through from Deborah in Arizona. Good afternoon, Deborah, and welcome on board. Deborah is asking how soon Karula will come into season now that she has lost her cub. And apologies, folks, I did completely forget to mention earlier that 2 days ago she did lose another one of her cubs, also to hyena, on another property. We only got that information today, though. He knows at an adjacent lodge, and it has been therefore confirmed that she's lost 2 cubs in 2 days, and in all likelihood those are all of them. They usually give birth to 2, sometimes 3 cubs. And now that she has lost both of her cubs from the most recent litter, she could be mating within a week. I've followed another female leopard who went through the same trauma that Karula has been through the last few days, and as soon as a week after she lost her cubs, we found her mating. And that is nature, and shows how efficient nature is, because she doesn't have anything to wait for, and her main role on this earth is to create more leopards, and she will continue days of constant mating. So if we do manage to find them, we will have 3 to 5 days of good quality viewing. She could potentially mate with Mvula, the dominant male of this area, and wouldn't that be nice to see? He was the same male that she did mate with 3 months ago, or just over, probably 4 months ago now, and he was the father of the most recent cubs. So he could well be the father of the next litter, but only time will tell. It is an exciting prospect to look forward to, though, because when leopards mate, it's an incredible sight. The female does a lot of work enticing and inducing the male to mate with her, and every 20 minutes she'll get up and perform almost some form of a lap dance where she will entice him into mating with her, and then she'll present herself, they'll mate. It's a very short-lived experience, probably a second or two, and when they come apart from one another, it's usually with a fair amount of snarling and flaying paws, as it is a painful experience for both of them. So it's a very heated affair, that of watching leopards mating. And something that we certainly do look forward to seeing. I haven't seen leopards mating since I left the Sabi Sands, just over 2 years ago. But thanks very much for that question, and I hope what I've just said answers it. Just keeping a close eye on the tambuti tree behind us, because there's a strong chance at any second now that Djuma would come back, and it would be very nice to see him climbing up the tree. Just got a question through from, I think it's Beth, asking whether Karula will now abandon the other kill. And as far as my understanding goes with leopards, they will, and from my experience in the past, I've seen a leopard with 2 kills in 2 different trees, and she alternated between feeding on the 2 of them. She wouldn't potentially finish off the older kill first, but I guess it depends on the individual leopard. But due to the proximity of these 2 kills, and even if they were further apart, she wouldn't simply abandon them, not if there wasn't any specific reason to. Food is a hugely important part of their lives here, and it's not easy for her to catch her prey, usually. This afternoon was a bit of a rare example, because the impala lamb didn't have the security of the herd and or its mother to help it. But I don't think she will abandon the kill. She'll stay here until the meat is finished on both of them. And if it was just her here, I would say that she'd still be here by tomorrow evening with all this food. But the fact that Djuma is here in the area, we're seeing her this morning, or at midday rather, he could obviously consume even more than she's consuming. He is bigger than her. So all things factored into the equation, the food may be finished by tomorrow morning. I'm guessing they'll still be in the morning, but we'll see, and I'm certain that she will not abandon the kills. But good question. It is something that happens with lions, and we saw that happen just a few weeks ago with the buffalo that were killed, 3 different buffalo in 3 different nights. The lions urged to feed and kill overrid their situation that they were in, and on the first night they had a buffalo killed that they were feeding on. We left them in the evening. The following morning we found them on another fully grown buffalo, and they'd abandoned the other kill. And then on the second evening they were feeding on the second buffalo, and another herd of buffalo walked past, and they ran off and caught a young calf. But that was nearby, and it was only a calf, so they continued to feed on both of the kills, the second 2 kills. So that's just another example of an animal that did, or animals that did abandon their kill. But there's no set formula out here, and we could expect anything from these animals, but I'm guessing that she will still be here in the morning. I think it might be worth us repositioning, folks. It's just myself and one other vehicle here now. Okay, copy. Just get him to get a hold of me when he's a few minutes out, just so I can make sure it's all sorted here for space. Okay, folks. I'm not sure what to do, but I've got a feeling that it might be best for us to get into position at the other kill, as I don't think it's going to be too much longer until Djuma does come back. So I think that is what we shall do. Okay. Sorry, Alex, could you just go again with the name, who that question came from? Got a question from either Dan or Anne, and in Florida. Good afternoon. Leah. Where we are now. But if it was to be a female that she had given birth to, or her daughters, they could well spend time in very similar territories or adjacent territories to their mother, and then I'm certain that they do know one another, but they will only be so friendly and so accommodating of one another as the years pass by, because they do have their own goals and requirements to live out here, and they aren't social cats, so their solitary nature is an important part of their lifestyle, and they typically will be predominantly solitary, with a chance of occasionally meeting up and interacting. So they certainly do, Leanne, they certainly do know one another, but I haven't been in a situation to view leopards over a long period of time in a night scenario to know for certain that after years of them being apart, that if they did reunite, they would know who's who. Okay, I've just headed up the riverbed here, and I hope that we may find a sign of Djuma. So far,
Just want to take a quick advantage of a really beautiful sunset, and we will be getting back to Scott. We're hoping we'll get the signal back up and strong from Scott's vehicle, from Jigga. But in the meantime, I just thought I had to share this with you, this magnificent African sunset. The sun it's going to get a little bit more intensive. We're looking over the northwestern area of the Sabi Sand. Those lovely little round hills in the distance are the koppies of Lusaba and Leopard Hills, and the lodges Dulini, to the south of them Idube and Inyati, area that I know quite well. I've spent some time there. area on the Sand River, and then of course in the way distance you can see the escarpment, the Drakensberg Mountains. Helicopter spoiling our sunset. Go away. Probably that little bubble one that comes from Matsiri going to Nelspruit. So what we're going to do, having witnessed a really magnificent patch of sunset, we're going to make our way past Djuma Waterhole, Gowrie Dam, and we're going to go and see what we can find over there. There have been a few times that I've been asked the question whether leopard have favourite trees within their territory. There are trees that leopard have used time and time again, whether one could call them favourite trees or just convenient trees. Trees that once they've already been up them and they've had to kill up them, they know how to get up there quickly, and they know they're familiar with things. And I've got to listen to the radio now. Wait, I'm busy. Okay, sorry. Distracted by the radio, unfortunately. We're heading towards Karula in that wonderful jackalberry, and I was saying how we often asked if leopard have favourite trees. Well, not often, but occasionally I've had that question, and it's not really an easy question to answer because it's kind of a yes or no. It depends, one of those ones. If they're in the immediate vicinity and they need that tree, since they've been in that tree, they'll use it again. But there are trees like that big giant jackalberry where I think Karula is now. It sounds like she's in that big jackalberry on Gowrie Cut Line, and I think the moment that I saw that tree for the first time, it's like birds and owls and all sorts of things. So I think there's possibly two previous occasions where we've had leopard in that jackalberry. I don't know if the tute's a favourite, not necessarily it's always the same leopard, but it is one of those that's designed for a leopard, so it's bound to have a leopard in it. And the chances of seeing a leopard in and being at the same time, well, that coincides, that serendipity makes it a very special evening to spend the first year of a new year with Karula in a very, very magical tree after a faithful end to the last year. But it would appear that, from information I gleaned today, she originally had 2 cubs, and I was told that one cub was taken by hyena the day before yesterday on a neighbouring property. little I can. I've only had it from one source. But evidently she's been where she is now, where you is Philemon's dip. So we're going to try and get to see Karula, because for me to see a leopard in that tree is very special. It might never happen again. Wow, are you shouting? And the dwarf mongoose shouting. Might be eagle. Very clearly the go-away sound of the go-away bird, and I'm sure that's coming across quite well. Making an impala very nervous. There's one impala ram off to the left, and he's quite alert. I can't see what the go-away birds are shouting at, to be honest. Another impala, two boys. They're listening to something further down. I'm not seeing anything, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing here. Something's clearly grabbing their attention. The birds have stopped alarming, maybe because we stopped and acknowledged their call, so they think, okay, well, they've passed it on, now it's our problem. He's not convinced that danger's over, he's very alert. Well, we want to go and see Karula in the tree. The light is just getting perfect now. See, now the sun's coming out from underneath that cloud it was hiding under, or behind, when we stopped for sunset. But I would like to be able to get a different angle. Copy, thanks. How's his signal? Okay, copy. Would you not rather have this light on than the king where? Beautiful light. You should probably catch that as if I drive slow enough, but I don't want to drive too slow. See if I can try and get there, because if she's in the tree and we have the side sunshine, oh, the view must make her, unless she's in the shade. Happy New Year, everybody, from all of us here at Wild Earth. Glad you've been joining us. We're on our way to see a leopard. A wonderful leopard in Djuma. Likely to move any minute now. But most important is we're missing this light, so just a little bit, timing is out a bit. We still have to get across the dam, all the way over there. And by then the sun will be gone. The light right now is incredible. 360 degree of glow. See that tinge to the top of those grasses at the top of quarantine? Look at that. I'm going to go forward with that zoom, because the light there is getting good night sunshine. I love the sunset too, but already the shadows are creeping over the opposite hill, and it's going to put that chuckleberry in shade. I get mists at the moment, but we got a beautiful sunset. Do leopards stockpile food? No, not really. Although, having said that, there are incidents of where leopard have had a kill and then the opportunity arises to make another kill, and the second kill is also taken into a tree where there have been two kills in two trees relatively close to each other. But invariably the leopard then doesn't really bother going back to the old one. And depending on season, well, that depends on whether the carcass dehydrates or whether it just decomposes. That's an eastern sunset. Look at that sky in the east that we're facing right now. If there was zoomy looking across the dam, it'd be pretty awesome. Just can't resist the sunset. Like guinea fowl, fleas. Oh, kingfishers. Watch where you're flying. Big puppy. Hello hippos. See you later. We're just going to see Karula. If we can, because, excuse me, colon, Natal, Franklin. Here's some other baby birds tweeting in there. And the sunset just continues to glow. So we might not have late afternoon sun shining on her in the tree, as we're now really getting close. But we'll still have this beautiful sky. Excuse me, dove. No, it's like, look. Yeah, there we go. Flies. There. I've got to show you the sky to put everything into perspective. I mean, look at this whole view that we've got right now. Here, this is the big jackalberry. It's a giant tree that we're going to be approaching, and Karula's somewhere in there with this beautiful orange sky behind her. I should have had it on camera long ago. Pretty dark down here. I can see her in that very, very low, very, very heavy dark branch. Can you see her yet? Problem is that from here we can just see her paw hanging down. She's sort of just on the branch in here. Franklin are making a lot of noise. So she wouldn't have really been in much light. She would have been in the shade. But maybe from an angle down here we might get to see her a bit better. Very easy. Pardon?
Go back a little bit.
See on that branch, Probably from you can get a head through that little hole there.
Ja, best.
Moment, the best we can do. It is pretty dark in there. I can see Scott and Wiem further down across the drainage line. That must be where the kill is.
I can see a kill there in the tree.
Where?
In the tree right there, in that fork.
Oh, there, just in front. I don't even see that. So what are they doing there? Oh, so this is a different impala that she's got. Aha. Starting to get active, this little girl. Well, here's a perfect example of what we've been talking about. Sorry. Hard to get the timing right with the radio and stuff. Just a message from our technical department that the resolution of the picture that we're putting out at the moment is evidently not what it was before, and they are working on trying to solve that issue. To relay that from our technical department. So here we have Karula. She's got an impala here in this tree, a young impala, where Scott and Wiem are. They looking at another kill where evidently Djuma was further down in the drainage line. Case of having to, so it's quite possible, and if I'm not mistaken, she killed maybe the adult impala this morning, and then this is probably the lamb that she's now finally killed, because the lamb probably wouldn't have known where to go. Looks like a very small thing there in the tree. If I do that, maybe. And she's probably, that's got to be 30 feet up. Maybe if you can just get perspective, Brian, with her in this jackalberry tree, just the size of this tree, since she's sitting at, oh look at this folks, this is one of the most wonderful trees that we're going to see here at Djuma, this giant jackalberry, with that once in a lifetime moment of actually seeing a leopard in a branch, in a tree that looks like it grew that branch for there to be a leopard on it. And no one better to be on that branch but the Queen herself, the ebony throne. Don't really need that, I suppose. Is Scott live as well?
This is
Alex coming. Oh, trying to get down. Yeah, so I can just mention to Scott and VM that their voices are being picked up by the mic a little bit. Scott and VM, we're picking up their voices a bit on the mic. What an incredible shot. Also, if you can tell Alex, or rather tell Scott that she's down. I'm going to follow her now. Okay, time to maybe not. We're going to the dam, girl. Going to have some water at the dam, maybe. This is an opportunity to be alone with her. Although right now she's toileting, so I just want to give her that moment with the sunset. She's going back into where straight line really. Could be going back to the dam. I'm not gonna maybe follow her much. I'll just have a look and see. Old track that comes in here. She's heading up. I know where it goes, and it also she's branching off now, making a beeline for the dam actually more than anything else. Let's see. Okay, copied. Hope that we don't cut signal if I talk to him. Still quite a bit of it. Yeah, in the Jackalberry. Yeah. Still quite a bit by the looks. Then again, I only saw a couple of legs. Probably ate the rest of it. I don't know why guys feel compelled to have to shout questions and things across the site. Coming to the exact same place where the cubs were.
There's some more limbs lying over there. It's a little bit unclear what happened to it.
It's going to the exact same fallen marula, so I'm just going to check. onto the marula tree where she lost the cub. Wow. Kingfisher coming in just above her, and you got her there. Wanted to get a chance, but she's calling. She's calling. I'm going to have to move forward a little bit. I just heard her vocalizing again. Much the same. She's just vocalized now. And it's probably the very same call that might have brought those hyena in yesterday. And she's now got her head very, very deep in the hole where she was keeping the cub. Oh, something in there. I can hear something. Oh wait, it is. Unfortunately, it's sort of the best view we've got. No. That would be a third then, if it is. Well, I was told something that a couple of days ago she lost a cub on Simbambili, on a molecule. But that much she's calling. She's calling and there's nothing coming. I suppose just as important as it was to experience what we did is to see this as an aftermath. She's come back here, she's calling. And we've seen her on termite mounds in the past where when Misha and Nduna were sort of leaving the nest, how she would just call and call and call and they would ignore her. I think it's time to just let her go. She's got to find her own closure to this. And it might take days. There are many animals that actually do that. We don't have the monopoly on feelings, especially maternal bonds. Right to be here now, it's getting dark. wish I had the ability to convince someone else to do the same, but unfortunately not my place. I think almost just as emotional as yesterday was this. She came back here, she put her head in that hole where the cub was, and she's calling. For a minute, just for a brief moment, I thought there was another one. I saw some movement, but it was probably her. Quite something. Be a part of that little moment. Because part of her was driven to then still go out and kill impala today and still put stuff up a tree and then... Wow. Wow. Going back to look and call. We might even pick her up again as we go around towards Gowrie Dam, towards the dam wall, and before we say goodbye. That beautiful orange sky. A lovely moment to bring in the new year, a lovely summer's day. And a cat moving on, still coming to terms with the loss of her youngsters. If there were two, I can't verify that. So I don't wish to start any stories. So it wasn't, I can't even say it was on good authority. It was a comment by someone in the staff village. I'm sure we're going to see Karula again. And I'm hoping that in those moments, in those times when we do spend time with her, maybe it's tomorrow or in the next few days, I'm sure. Yeah, in the, well, where life is as harsh as it is, there's a certain part of it, there's a certain aspect of her life that just has to carry on functioning, and that's already been shown by the fact that she's been hunting, and she's even got kills in a tree, and I would imagine that she's got those kills, especially that young impala, hoping that she can, or in the process of getting her cubs to come and feed on it and start learning about prey and learning about feeding and learning about what it is to be a leopard, things that only that will do. Leaving the kill, going back to the den site, trying to call, seeing if maybe it didn't happen. We were wishful thinking. I've been wishing that it didn't happen, that maybe a hyena did something else and then ran away. Heron coming into land. So, what a wonderful moment to be able to get her. magic. Thing was perfect. Get back there when she was ready to come out of the tree, climb down. And just a few silent moments with her. I think that's what was needed. That's what it called for. It's almost like a wake. I wish we could show just as much sympathy for almost anything that just that gets killed along the way, whether it's to be eaten or because it's competition. Almost anything that gets killed along the way, whether it's to be competition. Cats and cubs, especially Karula and her children. It's our own fault that we get close. That's why it's very hard to raise little wild animals that pull out of nests, and one has to try and you can feed them and you can raise them, but they will never really know what danger is, and there's always this heartbreak that something else is going to come and get them, and it's hard enough dealing with this kind of natural event of Karula's cub being lost. It's so much harder when one tries to play mom or parent, or just one tries to raise something out here in the bush, because that is a very difficult task. And then losing that child, especially after feeding it and caring for it. We just sometimes we get a little bit too emotional for our own good, and we can't be blamed for it. We can't help it. It's our makeup. And I wish the world was far more compassionate than it really is. But it is. It's just the world we live in. And I'm glad there were a bunch of you out there that have experienced the last few days with us, the end of one year, and today is the start of a new year. Beautiful sunsets. And so from everyone here at Wild Earth and through the Wild Safari Live on Nat Geo Wild, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for sharing the sunset and moments with Karula. My name is Mark. I've had Brian and the thumb on the back with me today. The thumb's been very quiet. Pirate today. Cool cat. With this thing. And we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be out tomorrow. Both of us, all the time. So bye everyone.